Hello there. Okay, guys, for the ones who weren't with us this morning at the Wall Talk, it is my extreme pleasure to introduce Hunter Lovins, who is Time Magazine's Millennium Hero of the Planet, and I can tell you that I have been stalking her for years. She doesn't know that because she's been my hero for a really long time. This is one of the people that created the movements, that created the environmental movement, the change. I happened to be watching Earth Days to celebrate Earth Day, and the movie Earth Days picks out a few people that were so important in creating what happened, which is now the EPA and all these things, and she was one of the few people that was mentioned. So we are so lucky that she decided to come see us. And I'm not going to keep talking. By the way, the most important thing is that Freya had the bright idea that in our library we'll have her books, because she's written a lot of books on the topic, and we can you can check them out. So we'll be getting those. So technical difficulties. I just introduced you. I'm done. I had such a pleasure. You don't need an introduction.
See if we can make this guy work. So far, so good. Welcome to the Anthropocene. When all of you were born, we lived in a different geologic era. We are now, the geologists tell us, in the era in which we humans are the dominant geologic force on the planet, and indeed, the dominant force full stop. If we insist on ruining the planet, we're going to have to stop claiming we're a superior species. I think it's worth taking care of, yeah? Dr. Sylvia Earle, the great oceanographer, says what we do in the next 10 years matters more than what humanity does in the next 10,000. We're the last generation to have a chance of solving the problems that we and our forebears have created. Dr. Johan Rockström, Stockholm Resilience Institute, and a whole fleet of scientists established what they call the planetary boundaries. These are 9 areas critical to the survival of life on Earth. We've exceeded 4 of them. We're heading to exceeding the rest, to the extent that we even know where the thresholds are, which is not entirely certain. And at the same time, as Dr. Kate Raworth says, we are failing to meet the basic human minimums. Kate has a new book out that I highly recommend to you called Donut Economics. The sweet spot, the safe and just operating space for humanity below the planetary boundaries, above the human minimums, we're exceeding them. The scientists say perhaps as early as 2040, the Middle East will be uninhabitable. Think about that. Already, there are 65 million people on the move. In large part driven by climate change, exacerbating ethnic tensions, religious conflict, but the UN admits the Syrian conflict was worsened, exacerbated by climate change. The conflict in the Sudan, climate change. And this is only going to get worse. And think about it again. What would you do? You cannot stay where you are. Your crops are failing. There's no work. Where are you going to go? And who wants you? And this is now driving tensions all across Europe. We have our own equivalent of it here. It's changing politics. This is not going to get any better. Waste. What you are doing has the potential to solve this problem. We're an incredibly wasteful species. 500 billion tons of stuff every year thrown away. Of all things made, less than 1% is ever put into a product and is still there 6 months after sale. all the rest is waste. But think about that. It also represents an enormous business opportunity. If you have the buds that can take that waste and turn it into something useful, you literally are sitting on an inexhaustible gold mine. We need a new story. We had a story when all of us were born. There was a mental model that ran the world, and indeed still does, called neoliberalism. This notion that markets are perfect, the role of government is to get out of the way. We as individuals are basically greedy bastards, but that's okay, because in perfect markets, each of us greedily trying to get ours will somehow magically aggregate to better life for everybody. You've heard this rationale. If you've ever had an economics class, this is what's in your head. Thomas Berry says it doesn't work anymore. Humanity stands at the edge of a cliff. We need a new story. This is the number from last year, and let's see if this little animation works. Yeah. This is this year's number. 8 men, and they are all men, have as much wealth as the 3.5 billion poorest people on the planet. Half the world's population. 8 men. Are you okay with that? And it's getting worse. Last year's number, this year's number. I don't know how much worse it can get. One person owning it all, but the banks are getting bigger. We learned nothing in 2008. This is the case for most working people now. Oh, it's your fault. You're not working hard enough. You're a slacker. You're a welfare mom. You're a welfare queen. If we took, back up a second, if we took just the bonuses paid to the Wall Street bankers, just the bonuses, never mind their salary, and distributed it to people who are making the minimum wage, it would double the minimum wage to a living wage. Study issued about 2 years ago called HANDY, Human and Nature Dynamic Study. NASA funded it. They obviously named it for the acronym. It looked at collapse through human history. And it found collapse is actually fairly common. When it happens, it lasts for a long time, hundreds to thousands of years. It's driven by one or both of two things. You overrun your resource base, or you have high levels of inequality. Hello! And of course we have both. The study concluded that under conditions closely resembling those obtaining today, we find it very difficult to avoid collapse. So this is the context within which you all are working. Time is very short. We have a long way to go and a short time to get there. And the consequences of not getting it right are pretty grim. We literally, the scientists tell us, and this is just one of a number of such studies. If you really want to put yourself in a bad mood, don't do this. Go read the work of Dr. Peter Turchin, University of Connecticut. He says, well, the Trump election made it clear humanity collapses within 10 years. How long have you been around? 12 years. It's not a lot of time to get it right. So is this the end? No. Mandela said, poverty's not an accident. We created it. What that means is we can uncreate it. We can tell a different story. But that, I submit, is the challenge now before us, to invent this new story. Pete Seeger, the humble folk singer, said, the future of the world is finding the optimistic stories and telling them. You have the most optimistic story I have come across in years. and any of the rest of you who want, Freya and any of you, to tell your story. Because until I just bumped into Jennifer at the Unreasonable Institute, I'd never heard of you. Why not? Every damn body the world around ought to know who you are and what you're doing, because it matters. If you guys get it right, you solve a whole array of problems. Who are we as humans? Are we greedy bastards? The scientists tell us we're not. The evolutionary biologists tell us that when humans came down out of the trees in Africa, we were naked, our claws aren't worth much, our teeth are pretty inadequate, we're not as fast as a lion. We are here, you and I are here today, because those proto-humans bonded, they worked together. And we're creative buggers. We're entrepreneurial. We begin again. We invent things. Sure, we like to acquire, and once we have something, we like to defend. The neoliberals got that much right. But they left out the other half. Why do we love Facebook? Nobody makes any money off Facebook, few advertisers. You don't. Why do we love Facebook? Because we're bonding. And so part of this new story is learning to work together to create, in Buckminster Fuller's words, a world that works for 100% of humanity. And entrepreneuring it, and that's what you're doing. Here's the world we have today. We, people, the planet, are in service to the economy, which is in service to finance. We're really good at flowing money to the top. That's those 8 men. What's wrong with this picture? It's wrong way round. Finance is a tool to bring money to a real economy that should be in service to life. And that, I think, is the guts of this new story, that we exist to serve life. This is what nature does. Janine Benyus, the person who invented the concept of biomimicry, said, nature creates conditions conducive to life. And that, I think, more than anything, is what you all are doing. This is Bucky. Make humanity work for 100%. He said, you don't change the existing reality by fighting it. You create something better. And this, again, is your story. This is John Fullerton. John has a concept called regenerative capitalism. John was 18 years a banker at J.P. Morgan until early in 2001 he walked away. He was on a plane to Tokyo. He helped invent Morgan's practice in derivatives, managed that, private equity, commodities from Tokyo to London to Wall Street. He was on a plane, first class, drink in hand, and he said, I'm miserable. I want to be home with my wife and my newborn kid. He said, that's it, I'm out, I quit. No idea what he was going to do. Started reading. His wife said he was clinically depressed. He said, I may have been. He read for 6 years, and then he started writing. And I would commend to you his paper, Regenerative Capitalism, in which he lays out a set of principles of how we ought to be operating. He said, nature is sustainable, not because it's set out to be, but because it's regenerative. So what does it mean to be regenerative? And again, one of the reasons I'm so keen on what y'all are doing is this is at heart what you are doing. You have these bugs that are regenerating and eating waste. And eating the waste that is the carbon waste that really is the existential threat now to humanity. These are the principles. Right relationship. This owes to the ecological economists, Dr. Bob Costanza, Josh Farley, Herman Daly, Bill Rees, that our economy is a little linear process inside of society, inside of the biosphere. We think the economy is everything. No, it's not. It's something we created, and unless we understand its role in society and our role in the biosphere, we're going to get it wrong. Holistic wealth. Wealth is important, yeah. It's useful. But is money wealth? When you ask people, what do you want more of? The first thing they say is well-being, happiness, health, belonging, community, the ability to be part of something greater than I am. You ask this of young people, what kind of a job do you want? You want to make a lot of money? Yeah, that'd be okay, but what I really want is to be part of something bigger. So holistic wealth. Empowered participation. This is having a say in the economy that affects you. It owes to the work of Francis Moore Lappé and economic democracy. Edge effect abundance. This is this biological concept that in nature the most abundant ecosystems are where two of them come together, where a river meets the ocean, a meadow meets the forest. Why? Because there is diversity. And looking around this room, I mean, Sean apparently says that you've got it right if you look like the United Nations. Michael Porter, the great, so-called great Harvard strategist, was doing a study on what underpins economic prosperity. What is the predictor in a community, in a country, of the ability to do economic development? And what he found was the single greatest predictor was prevalence of homosexuals. He went, what? That's got to be a surrogate indicator. So he thought about it for a while and he said, gays go where they are tolerated. And where there is tolerance of diversity is where you get the ability to do successful economic development. So this concept of diversity is critically important. Robust circulation. This is the concept of the circular economy, Walter Stahel's work. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. Balance. We're very efficient at flowing money to the top, and we're very brittle. If you are wholly resilient, you're not terribly efficient. So there needs to be a balance between these. The Navajo speak of life in balance. Many of the native peoples knew this instinctively. We've lost that. And then perhaps most importantly, honoring place. We can have a global economy. You guys are global. But if we don't honor every place, then the whole thing falls apart. Wendell Berry said, what I stand for is what I stand on. And honoring the earth and our home and becoming native to somewhere. These, John Fullerton and I argue back and forth, but these are the best principles that I've found in 40-odd years of doing this work to guide building a world that works for everybody. This is the narrative that a group of us, about 200 of us from around the world, have been working on to supplant the neoliberal narrative of small government, perfect markets, primacy of individual choice within the marketplace. That we need to bring in this concept of bonding, of interdependence, in addition to entrepreneurialism and individual excellence. This has not yet been wordsmithed. I leave here tomorrow to go back to Colorado for a Regenerative Future Summit with about 200 people who have been working on these issues, including a number of marketers, to try to wordsmith this into something that I can remember and that would better roll off the tongue. But does this seem to you to make sense? Anybody think we've got it fundamentally wrong? I hope we're onto something. These are the principles that a group of us created when we wrote the book Natural Capitalism. They are not, I think, as fundamental a set of principles as John's regenerative, but it is the arc of transition. It's how you get from here to there. First of all, you buy time by using all resources more efficiently. Secondly, we redesign how we make and deliver all goods and services using approaches like biomimicry. And third, we manage all institutions to be regenerative of human and natural capital. These are the forms of capital that we currently are treating as having no value, but without which we don't have life and thus we don't have an economy. First principle, efficiency. Per megawatt saved in a community, you generate over $2 million in increased economic activity, wages, jobs. 10 times the number of jobs, 12 times the number of jobs investing in efficiency as investing in central power stations. There is a robust business case for energy efficiency. The Germans are showing this. Their GDP is going up, their carbon emissions are going down. Because of good policy, the Germans put in place what they call a feed-in tariff. They said, we're going to pay anybody who creates green electrons a fair price, counting the social cost of emitting CO2. Boom, you get a whole lot of solar and wind. Dr. Mark Jacobson at Stanford, we know how to power the world 100% renewably, and we can do it by 2030. Here's where it gets fun. This man, Tony Seba, Stanford prof, he said, inevitably, the world will be 100% renewable by 2030 because of 4 things. Fall in the cost of solar and wind, fall in the cost of storage, the electric car and the driverless car. And it's coming. This is a report from Citigroup. Because of the alarming fall in the cost of solar, alarming to who? And they said, the transition comes at the cost of the incumbents. When it starts to go down, it goes down very fast. There's a man named Jeremy Leggett who is now writing that he is actually concerned that the oil companies will fail before the renewables industry is fully equipped to take it over. National Bank of Abu Dhabi. The future is renewables, and it's happening very fast. California in 1 year went from a little over 1% to 5% solar. 1 year. Costs falling. Abu Dhabi, had solar at 2.99 and held the world record low cost, so 2.99 cents per kilowatt hour. Anybody know what your electricity price is around here? 10? 2.99, so 3 cents. And the fuel is free. This is capital cost only. They held the record for about a month until Chile came on at 2.9, and then Mexico came on at 2.7, and then the Emirates came on at 2.4. All of this within a year's time. The Saudis, people say, we're going to be the Saudi Arabia of solar. Saudis said, excuse us, we're going to be the Saudi Arabia of solar. Mohammed bin Salman, the new energy minister, has said, we're cashing out. We're going to IPO Aramco and put together a $2 trillion fund. With $2 trillion, you could buy Apple, Google, Microsoft, Warren Buffett, and have some money left over to buy some islands. It's a lot of money. And we're going to begin the transition. So you might want to have a chat with Minister Solomon. Now that one I can't get you, but somebody could, and if we do enough PR, he'll come to you.
Sounds good.
I don't know him, but I'm pretty impressed. And I was asking an investor who has cashed out of fossil and is now entirely into renewables about this. I said, why would the Saudis increase extraction and thus crash the price? It was down at that point in the mid-20s. I said, why? Why wouldn't they keep it at around 50, which is roughly what it is now, 47, 48 and change? I mean, it's still below the competitive cost for most oil shale, certainly the tar sands, and yes, they are tar sands. We were having that conversation at lunch. The Canadians like to call them oil sands. But even at 50, those cease to be competitive. And I said, why? Why don't they have the price up higher? He said, it's very simple. Where is the oil in Saudi? Anybody know? It's in the east. He said, where is the Saudi royal family from? The west. Who lives in the east? The Shiites. Who lives in the west? The Sunni. They don't like each other. The Saudis are stripping the one asset of their mortal enemies. Okay, that makes sense. I may not like the role that money plays in the world, but if you follow the money pretty quick, you're going to figure out what's going on in the world. So that's why the Saudis are cashing out. They're afraid of revolution. They're afraid they're going to lose the oil patch. Why not? Extract the money, sell it off, sell off the asset, get out. National Bank of Abu Dhabi said even with oil at $10 a barrel, solar competes. So there is a long way yet to go. Tesla, electric cars. You want to talk about an entrepreneur, that's Elon. That guy raised, what was it, $10 billion in one day, selling a product that is yet to come onto the market. You gotta admire that. I did not put in my 1,000. This number is now out of date. Tesla is now valued at more than both GM and Ford. Market cap. Why? What business is Tesla in? It sure is not selling cars. What business are they in? Batteries, bingo. They're not a car company, they're a battery company. Because you put storage, low-cost storage, together with renewables, you now have fixed firm power. This spring, Tesla and 4 other battery companies brought on 70 megawatts of power in Southern California storage. In 6 months' time, world record speed of deployment. How long would it take you to build a facility?
I would say 18 months, some would say 24.
Yeah. Doing anything in 6 months' time is astounding. 70 megawatts in 6 months' time. And they turned around and said, oh, you folk in Australia who think you have an energy problem, I'll fix it for you. New solar array every 150 seconds going up in this country. This stuff is happening incredibly rapidly. And this is now truly an existential threat to the electric utility industry, the oil industry, the car industry, oh, and the banks who hold the paper on all of those companies. Everything is going to change, and incredibly fast. Chile, as I said, held the world record for low-cost solar until Mexico took it away from them. They're now working with India, so you now have South-South tech transfer in this stuff. And here's where you guys come in. We can solve. How do we provide power in buildings? How do we provide power for industry? How do we drive? How do we do most of transport except aviation? We don't yet know, well, we didn't yet know how to do that until you guys figured out how to make Jet A out of your bugs. Well, your bugs make Jet A out of carbon waste. How cool. The Navy has already flown the F-18 on biofuels. We know we can fly planes on a variety of liquid fuels. It doesn't have to be petroleum. In nature, carbon is not the world's greatest poison. It's the building block of all of life. And this is the gift that you are giving to the world. How do we take what is the existential threat to humanity and turn it into life? So again, anything at all that I can do to be of service to you, it's truly my honor. Okay, there we go, it's the building block of all of life. Paris, the world came together and formed an agreement. Remains to be seen if our idiot is going to pull us out of it. It would be a stupid thing to do. I was in Paris when we sealed the deal with CEOs of some of the biggest companies on earth who were pleading with the governments, give us a binding agreement and we will unleash trillions of dollars. And this is the hope. I think we won't pull out because the corporates are banging on Mr. Trump saying, don't pull out, it would be very bad for business. But even if the US is stupid for a couple of years, the rest of the world isn't. The rest of the world's not going to pull out. The companies are getting into this stuff. We Mean Business is a coalition of companies around the world. They have 6 million companies playing with them, pledging things like setting science-based goals, setting carbon targets, pledging to go 100% renewable. There are now almost 100 major companies that have committed to going 100% renewable. It's getting to be a who's who of good companies. Cities, over 1,000 cities have pledged to go 100% renewable. It's over. Now we get to build the kind of world we want to live in. This is really the challenge. And this, I would submit, is how you position this company. That you're part of building a world that works for everyone. You're going to have some help. We know how to roll climate change backward using nature. When the first pioneers came to this part of the world, they found 10 feet of thick black soil. It's now down to inches. That black is carbon. How did it get there? Grazing herds of animals, dense packed because there were predators. If you're a buffalo and there's a wolf around, the safe place to be is in the middle of the herds. Everybody's trying to get there. They trample the ground, they fertilize it, they eat everything and they move on. And they don't come back until the grass is back. We know how to mimic this. Folk like Dick Thompson, whose farm has used no chemicals, no pesticides, fertilizers, herbicides, using cover crops and animal impact, and profitable. He's in business where many of his neighbors are going out of business. And this is what it looks like. This is an example of a ranch that is holistically managed, a ranch that's conventionally managed, right next door to each other. This is standing on a bridge in Wyoming, looking north, looking south. One of them has grass. That grass has long roots. So Patagonia is making what they call long root ale out of kernza. This is a native perennial wheat. You don't have to plow it and plant it. It comes up every year. It's a prairie grass. Meet Will Harris. Will runs White Oak Pastures in South Georgia. He grows 5 species of meat animals, 5 species of poultry, holistically, and employs 137 people on 2,500 and growing acres. His neighbor has 2,500 that he farms conventionally with 4 employees. What are we going to need more of in the coming years? Jobs. Will is creating it and revitalizing the little town of Bluffton, Georgia. which had literally been rotting into the swamp. And it's now a vibrant tourist destination because of white-oak pastures. He built his own slaughterhouse so he could assure that the animals were being humanely treated. He also grows pasture poultry. And he discovered, when he first turned the chickens out on pasture, that he had a pair of bald eagles. I thought, how cool. He now has 80 bald eagles that winter on white-oak pastures, eating $1,000 worth of chicken every month. He said, well, we're told that we're supposed to tithe 10% to the church. I'm tithing to nature. Those are the bald eagles getting his chickens. He said, I can tell you that the chicken that you buy from me was in good shape because it outran the eagles. Meet Gabe Brown. Gabe is a North Dakota, well, was a North Dakota corn soybean farmer going broke. He started doing a similar sort of thing. First he went to no-till, didn't plow the ground. Then he went to cover cropping, has 28 species of different plants that he cover crops, and then he turns cows and pigs and sheep and goats and a whole bunch of other critters out on the cover crop, which means he doesn't have to grow hay to feed them, uses no chemicals, and has become profitable. He also has measured on some of his ground, he's gone from 1% soil organic matter to 11%. He's taking carbon out of the air and putting it back in the soil. And this is how we roll climate change backward. Profitably. Can't feed the world this way. These are cute little examples of boutique operations, yeah? Ted would beg to differ. They say smallholder organic agriculture, it's the only way we're going to feed the world. We can't afford to do it conventionally. If we can increase soil carbon 2%, we soak up all of the human-caused carbon emissions. You think we can do it? You know, Gabe's gone from 1 to 11%. It's happening. Whether it be Harvard Business Reports or sustainability certifications, or my friend Yvonne Chenard getting the cover of Fortune, or God save us, the evil empire going green. Trust me, when Walmart goes green, there's a business case. HBR, it's not the burden on the bottom line that sustainability was thought to be. It is the touchstone of all of innovation. And in the future, only companies that set it as a goal will achieve competitive advantage. That's what young people want. Kids don't want to work for a dirty company. And they're willing to pay for it. Sustainability is not about polar bears. We were talking with some of you earlier. I think this is where the environmental movement got it wrong. It's about business. And this is what you're proving, that this is the route to profitability. Carbon Disclosure Project, the companies that are leading in measuring and managing their carbon footprint have 18% higher return on investment than the companies that are the laggards, 67% higher than companies that refuse to measure. And then my favorite CEO, Paul Pullman of Unilever. When he was first hired, he said, I'm not going to report quarterly to Wall Street. He lost 10% of his stock value. And he said, those of you who have sold, I respect you as human beings, but if you think I can best grow the value of your company by managing on a 90-day rotation, I don't want you as my owners. Stock is now up significantly. This February, the Raiders came round. Kraft Heinz, 3G, Buffett, offered to a friendly offer to buy out Unilever. Took Paul 24 hours to say, nope. So that's not the company we are. We are going to prove that a commitment to behaving sustainably is the better way to do business. They have what they call the Sustainable Living Plan. source everything they get from something grown from sustainable agriculture, and lift 1 billion people out of poverty. And their purpose-driven brands are outperforming. They have, I don't know, something like 37 brands. 7 of them were purpose-driven. Their goal is now to have every one of their brands find its authentic purpose. In talking to various of you, I don't get a sense that that's a problem for you. But I would urge that as a company, you get real clarity. That you're not doing this for the money. My friend Ray Anderson said, there's no more strategic issue for a company than its ultimate purpose. Yeah, you're in business to make money, but that's not your purpose. Money is what will enable you to achieve your purpose. So what's your purpose? I have a pretty good sense of what I think it is, but I would urge each one of you to get in touch with that. Whether it is the scientific excitement in the labs, I heard that in spades today. Those of you who love what you're doing in the lab. Changing the world, I heard that today. Solving some of these gnarly problems. But get clarity in your own mind. Why are you here? What is the purpose of LanzaTech? And you will rule the world. You'll also help in meeting these, the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. The world came together. 2015 was an amazing year. We got the Paris Agreement, and prior to that, the nations of the world unanimously adopted the Sustainable Development Goals. And what you're doing will help deliver on a number of these. You know, I'm standing here in front of a science company, really pleased to see the number of women. Female CEO. Companies that have women in leadership significantly financially outperform those that don't. And investors, impact investors, are now looking for female-led companies simply because they're financially outperforming. Jobs. You're creating jobs. And if you succeed wildly, you'll create a whole bunch of jobs. This green sector is already the job creation engine of the world. At a time in which we need to create 50 million jobs a year. That's a lot of jobs. You guys better get at it. I think we can solve these problems. A finer future is possible. When we do it, we'll unleash the greatest prosperity humanity has ever known. But doing it will require this new story, a different sense of what it means to be human, why we're here, what it means to do business, and how we do business. Who's responsible? Those of you who like New Zealand. You'd have think somebody had picked up the darn possum before they painted the stripe. Not my job. Yeah, it is. It's all of your job. So a group of us got together and created an MBA in New York City in which we teach this stuff as the core of what it means to do business. Sustainability is baked into every class. As Maimonides said, we must each see ourselves as though the entire world were held in balance, and anything we do can make the difference. This is the summit that we're holding starting Monday. If any of you find yourselves in Colorado, come on. But it really comes down to leadership. We were talking about this at lunch. One person can make all the difference. We all say, oh, we want a great leader. Oh, God, Mr. Trump. Mr. Obama was so much better. Remember, in the story, it was these two. loving, unassuming little hobbits who took on their shoulders this awesome task. And they were scared, they didn't know where they were going. But in the end, all the kings and warriors and wizards could just stand by as the little people saved the world. I think real leadership is extraordinary courage by ordinary people. So I'm deeply grateful to each one of you for what it is that you do being part of LanzaTech. Thank you.
You're never going to forget that, I bet. I'm going to stand here for 2 minutes and just open it up for questions. We're going to also do a Q&A with her, a little fireside chat, but I thought before you forget everything, please.
Did I say anything controversial?
Come on, guys. Grab them all.
Like you said, going organic is actually the way to...
You know, we're taping this. I'd love to really make sure everybody's heard. Speak up.
Somebody want to carry the mic around?
I
Yeah.
can try to speak a little louder.
You can go down there.
No, look, Mark's got it. Over here, you can do that side, he can do that side.
So we showed all these examples of organic farming and the profitability of this compared to conventional farming. Like, I mean, I keep reading pretty much everywhere and have discussions with people that would say, oh, organic farming cannot feed the world because there's just not enough food produced and it would be impossible. So it's a luxury for some people here to go to Whole Foods and instead, you know, like it wouldn't be possible simply to feed the world this way. And I wonder if you could comment on this after your presentation.
Yeah, UNCTAD, whoa, drop this guy down a bit. UNCTAD looked at this and looked at, right now 70 to 80% of food on Earth is produced de facto organically, smallholder farmers. So they said, can we convert all of that to modern industrial agriculture, given the cost of that, the impacts of that, the limits to petroleum for driving all those tractors and providing all of that fertilizer, the cost to the farmer of buying those inputs, and they concluded, no, we can't do it that way. So then they looked at, can smallholder farming marry the best of modern science of regenerative agriculture with traditional practices, and concluded, yeah, we can get it done. It is a better way of feeding the world. People initially said organic farming has lower yields. We have to have much more food in order to feed the world. Well, it turns out 1/4 to 1/2 of all food is wasted now. If you eliminated just 1/4 of the waste, you would have enough food to feed the world today. If you then use the best practices of regenerative agriculture, such as are laid out by the Rodale Institute and the Savory Institute for grazing, you can dramatically increase productivity using organic practices. And then it's a heck of a lot cheaper. So yes, we can produce enough food. Yes, the economics are better. Yes, it scales. There's a lot of misinformation in the world today, and this notion of you have to have industrial agriculture to feed the world just turns out not to be true.
You want me to have a question?
Do it. Sorry.
Yeah, great talk, thanks. The 2 trillion fund from the Saudis, I was a little bit surprised by that. The beauty of solar is that you can do it locally. So then a massive scale of being an exporter of electrons, is that how they see themselves? Or are they going to convert this solar power that they're going to, do you have any more info on this?
The short answer is they haven't said precisely what they intend to do. But there are a number of folk in the Middle East who are looking to do big central solar and then export it to Europe. Coming from Saudi, it will be slightly tricky. And I suspect what the Saudis will do, what they are doing now, is simply recognizing they have to get out of the industry they're in. That's why I suggest that a conversation with Ben Salman might be a good thing for this company. But I suspect what they will wind up doing is distributing solar around the world. They'll just pour money into making it even cheaper. They'll team with the Chinese, and they will be the deployment arm for Africa. Africa's just going to go solar. It's not going to go with big central power stations. But the Moroccans are doing big central solar to export to Europe. The Tunisians are doing it. There's a company called Noor Energy that is putting in place the cables to bring it across from Tunisia. And the Europeans, Siemens, the big industrial engineering company, said, we're not going to build